beautiful Tuesday, and I believe you have ushered in your Tuesday in a great way and in style. Welcome to the newspaper review. My name is Alfonso Albakwekwe, and I'll be hosting alongside
Esther Adhiambo.
Yeah, this will be a daily compendium of local and international news, human interest stories, current affairs, and expert opinion.
And of course, this is where you get an authentic touch of the stories making the headline on our newspaper.
Alright, now you can keep interacting with us via our socials at Younib Media TV on Facebook and Younib_TV on Instagram. We will also be sampling your sentiments via our SMS line on 0719 144 144. So we start with the standard and the elephant in the room inside Ruto's 200 billion Kenya shillings budget. Now, many estimates, President assented to bill that allows government to spend 200 billion before end of the financial year, with the hustlers and suppliers among major beneficiaries. You have that story beefed up for you on page 4 now. There is a breakdown of what is expected. 60 billion shillings has been provided for pending bills by government to assuage the pain to government suppliers. However, the amount is a drop in the ocean. Also set aside is 6 billion Kenya shillings to be spent on recruitment of additional teachers, and a further 2 billion shillings to be used for schools feeding program. Another amount set aside is 15 billion Kenya shillings for agriculture, has gotten a shot in the arm with 15 billion set aside for the fertilizer subsidy program. Another 10 billion effects of drought. Now, there is a sentiment by President William Ruto, and I quote, "The settling of eligible pending bills remains urgent and sticky issue, especially among county governments, that is affecting many suppliers." That is President William Ruto.
And of course, on the national news on page 12 and page 13, experts sound alarm as river lakes dry up.
Well, that story is beefed up for you on page 12 and 13 of the Standard. Also on some business news, private funds at sea over NSSF rates. You have that story on page 7 of the Standard newspaper.
And also on the news features on page 3, you will see that ex-soldier wins around 30 million against KDF. This one is big for you on page 3 on the Standard.
And also on some sports news, Manchester swallow a bitter pill. We'll get a look at that on page 40 of the Standard. Also now on some business news, again, business worry as mass action deadline nears. So traders fear they might incur losses as the opposition rallies its supporters to demonstrate over high cost of living. We'll catch up with that story inside the Standard newspaper. Now let's see what the paper has at large.
And also, they say that around 60 billion set aside for pending bills. The government has said it will clear pending bills to the tune of 60 billion over the next 4 months, out at 481 billion. This is under the national news on the page 4 of the Standard.
And also echoes from the past, connection between Malcolm X, P.O. Gama Pinto deaths. That story up for you on page 2. You can have a look at that when you grab your copy of the Standard this morning. On to page 3, scars of war, court awards former soldier 30 million Kenya shillings. So Moses Etiang was among Kenyan soldiers deployed to Somalia under a mission. So an accident in 2014 while he was on patrol changed his life totally. You can read that story on page 3 of the Standard newspaper. Also, a man stabs friend to death over 20 shillings, Mutura in liquor joint. So 2 people died in a liquor joint in Maragua town after they fought over Mutura, worth 20 Kenya shillings. Moving on swiftly to page 4 of the Standard.
60 billion set aside in plan to tackle country's sticky issue. This is just a fraction of the money government owes suppliers, estimated to around 481 billion. Other notable allocation in the budget of 15 billion for the fertilizer subsidies.
Well, moving on swiftly to page 5 of the Standard, Makanda Kisotu to lead IEBC PICS team. So the team is tasked with coming up with the names of people who will serve as IEBC commissioners. The panel members were sworn into office last week at the Supreme Court. You can read that story on page 5 of the Standard newspaper.
And also, as we continue, Ruto launches a 20 billion housing project for low-income earners. The project is a partnership between the government and Gulf Cup Africa Limited. And also, the selling price for 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit start from 155 million.
Well, that sounds really good.
So that one is built for you on page 6 of the Standard.
Also on some national news still, UK Visa Printing Center in Nairobi to ease delays. So the High Commissioner said about 40,000 Kenyans visit the United Kingdom each year. About 162,000 Kenyans live in the UK, many of whom are students and nurses. That story is beefed up for you on page 7. On to some county news in Nandi. 2 teachers on the run after boy they beat for cheating in physics exam dies. So 2 high school teachers are on the run after police in Nandi launched an investigation into the death of a Form 1 student who was allegedly assaulted over exam cheating. That story is beefed up for you on page 7 of today's Standard newspaper.
And also, as we continue, cost of import to go up soon following KRA order on cargo. March 1st, consolidate cargo will be on the value and not 200 shillings per kilo. And also, the KRA says the order is aimed at ensuring fairness, equity, and effectiveness to all taxpayers.
Well, that's really to business people who do a lot of importation, Esther. I think maybe they are going to face a slightly rough time in the near soon.
The same way they had said earlier that this year is going to be a bit tough. So we'll have to bear with whatever comes our way, especially in business and in finance. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that is the state of the nation right now, so we just have to move with that. Alright, moving on to page 9 of the Standard. Officer kills lover, friend's wife then takes own life. Now, the 28-year-old corporal who appeared stressed on Saturday joked about killing. It is said Mulanda, who is married to Muchama, constantly fought over domestic issues. You can read that story on page 9. In Nairobi, Zambia offers local farmers land to farm. So with the high population experiencing food shortage across the country, the government received a boost from. You can read that story on page 9 of today's Standard.
Also, governor accuses KDF of using bomb on civilians. Lemorukai condemned their action by the military using choppers and sophisticated weapons. He also accused same Pokot leaders of inciting the communities to investigate violence. This one is briefed for you on page 10. Yes.
Well, moving on swiftly to page 11, these are some advertisement and career opportunities. You can have a look at that later. And now, Esther, let's see what is on page 12.
Controversy sounds Uasin Gishu County Overseas Study Program. Students say that they joined Laurea University of Applied Sciences in September last year. The university indicated that it will only continue with second semester teaching if the fee is received. So, I'm wondering.
Alright, let's see what is here on page 13. We have the selection panel for the selection. These are advertisements. You can also have a look and try your luck with those adverts. On page 14, experts sound alarm as Kenyan rivers and lakes slowly drying up. So the drying up of wetlands attributed to environmental degradation and climate change. Experts say it will take willingness by state agencies to save the dying water bodies. You can catch that story on page 14 of the Standard. Moving on swiftly to page 15, government bans irrigation as residents fight over scarce water. So, Irrigation Authority accused of failing to regulate the flow of the two rivers, meeting resolves to only allow people to draw water for domestic use. That story is beefed up for you on page 15 of today's copy of the Standard.
And also, as we continue, drought. This is how you can help to save lives of our brothers and sisters. Kenya is facing severe drought, the worst to hit our country in the past 40 years. An estimated 6 million people to 32 countries are facing acute food insecurity or acute malnutrition.
Oh, that's a sad state of affairs. I heard the other day when the First Lady of the US came, she gave some amount to salvage the drought situation in the country, and that really is good news.
Yes,
Yeah, let's look at some expert opinion. There is a question here: should Kenya Kwanza coalition parties merge? Now, we have a sentiment from a city lawyer called Gitau Karegi, who is in support of that motion, and then David Kapoloman, former Deputy Speaker, Trans Nzoia County, is of the contrary opinion, saying no, and that means he says Kenya Kwanza Coalition's party should not merge. Now, let's move on to page 18 and see what we have there.
On page 18, healthcare workers' competence is key to ending mother-baby death. According to the latest World Health Organization estimate of maternal mortality globally, the lifetime risk of death during pregnancy and childbirth in Kenya is 52, compared to 63 in East Africa, 40 in Sub-Saharan, and 210 globally. So that is the 210 is the total amount of, total number of people who are facing the baby deaths, especially young parents or the mothers.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you can read more insights on that story on page 18. Now, on to the Reader's Corner, Youth Empowerment, why all leaders should emulate Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja. So Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja is always focused in supporting young people. Last year, he talked about engaging the youth in income-generating activities that would help reduce the runaway crime in the city. You can read more also on page 19. Now, from the web, in regards to the story of Deputy President naming those who stole, there are some sentiments from Twitter that we will sample a few. Now, Maurice Otieno says, Ministry of Promise is the most performing ministry in the Kenya Kwanza government. Do we have DCI? Record the statement there with evidence and avoid unnecessary populist politics in matters of national importance. Also, Samuel Otieno says, we should be hearing of people being charged in court. So these are some of the reactions that came up after the Deputy President said he is planning to mention those who looted from the previous government. So you can also get to read more of that and more of insights on the Reader's Corner on page 19 of the Standard newspaper. On to some county news. Esther, what is there?
On bitter cup of tea for farmers as drought scorches leaf harvest. The factory with a capacity of process over 240 kilograms of green leaf daily were only getting between 30. And also, the KTDA will soon embark on massive tree planting initiative to address climate change issue. I think this one is good. Because it will help curb the drought that we are having, especially right now. Some
brilliant insights there. Let's look at the business news and mass action calls spook battered economy. That story is beefed for you on page 4 and 5 of the Financial Standard. This is an article that strictly expands more on business. So it is inside today's copy of the Standard. Now let's see what it has. On matters energy, the tiny diamond sphere that could unlock clean power, developing target fuel capsules has taken decades of work. Now, you can catch that on the Financial Standard article, page 2 of it. And then on matters taxation, excise tax hikes leave farms gasping for air. So, incessant upward reviews have eaten into the bottom line of many manufacturers while setting up consumers for higher prices. That is on page 3 of the article of Financial Standard. You can get more insights on that there.
And also on special reports, man's action threat, spook already battered economy. Business are bracing for likely disruption as the opposition digs in on demands for the government to address the high cost of living crisis and disputes presidential polls. And also we see that Deepak Dev gave an opinion where he said economic confidence dropping or uncertainty rising are a severe negative in the current environment of forex shortages, rising food and prices of drought conditions.
Well, more of that story on page 4 and page 5 of this article. Also, let's see what page 6 has.
Again, on the energy, we see there is a number of around 26 billion. Okay, what Kenya Power says is 15% per reduction in the cost of electricity caused the company in revenue losses last year. So I think the Kenya Power are losing around 15% of the electricity, and also around 14 billion Kenya shillings Kenya Power net loss in the 6 months to December 2023.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move to page 7 on the social security. How new NSSF rates could spell the death of nil for private schemes. Now, employers are likely to view other contributions as an unnecessary expense that can be done away with. You can read that story on page 7. Also, 16 trillion shillings is the value of the Kenya's private sector pensions industry, and that story is also still on page 7 of the article.
As we continue with the commentary, China Square. Well, why we should square the economy? We see that last week I stopped at China Square along the Thika superhighway to confirm its existence, and I think the emerging of China Square has made so many people to visit this place, because you'll always find it is always congested. Starting from around 8, I guess it's 8 to 4 in the evening. So I think the China Square. Apart from that, I also noticed that most of our Kenyans love cheap stuff. That's why they are visiting China Square.
Yeah, I saw a debate yesterday on social media about the closure of China Square, and these guys were saying in China, it's always about selling the product, getting that product moving, and not staying there with the stock to keep it, to see it all, or to entice them. Yeah. So that is why they say in China Square, people there are always many. It attracts a lot of traffic simply because the rates there are slightly affordable to people because of that insight that Chinese want their things to keep moving, you get.
Yes.
And there's a sentiment here, I'll read it. Growth is driven by investors and their money. Before you demonstrate against China Square, you need to visit China and see the level of foreign direct investment. So let's hope they are going to reopen soon, as they said, but I clearly understand they posted on their socials that they have closed until further notice. We'll miss China Square for sure.
So much.
Let's move on to county news on page 22 of the Standard. New certificates for students in prior skill policy. Now, new system allows youths with prior learning knowledge in various fields to be assessed. The certificates to be issued by the Polytechnic will be recognized locally and internationally. Some good news there.
Yeah.
Take us to Wajir. I see there's some news there.
And also, in Wajir, Governor Abdullahi pledges to work with all leaders after court's victory. He also say, okay, here, Wajir Governor Hamid Abdullahi has pledged to work with all elected leaders in the county for development. I think for that, it's a nice thing.
A round of applause.
Yeah.
A round of applause.
So Wajir Governor, thumbs up.
Well, let's move on to page 25. Learners have a better chance with expanded curriculum. So traditionally, home science was associated with girls, but it is evident that the skills and competencies it gives are needed by boys too. So learners have a better chance to expand their skills. It is nowadays not restricted to girls. I think the perception of the society is also changing with time.
Yes.
All right, let's see on to some business news. So, Carrefour sales rise to 40 billion shillings on branch expansion e-commerce. Retailer backs the trend of poor performance by foreign and local peers. Move comes as troubled Tuskys yesterday announced the closure of its Kenyatta Avenue branch in Nairobi, one of the three that is still operational. Yeah, so Carrefour is expanding, Tuskys is closing. I think maybe if we look at it properly, there are a few outlets of Tuskys supermarket that are still functioning in town. There is one in Tomboya Street, and it's not that busy as it was. So clearly things don't look good for Tuskys. Yeah, and on to page 29, we have some world news. On sports, knockout games put coach jobs at risk. That is on page 39. We'll see that when we get to sports news. Also, an altar boy who became Africa's most wanted man. The ICC wants to confirm the charges against Kony in his absence. There is a 640 million shillings bounty for information leading to his capture. That's sarcastic. An altar boy who became Africa's most wanted man. So let's see what we have here on page 30-31, advertisements here and there. I think it's that time we move to sports news then. So Premier League, what a bit appeal to swallow for Manchester United. 7-up. Hi Manchester United fans. I know they are still in recovery mode.
Actually, I'm a Manchester fan. So when you say that, it hurts me.
Oh, sorry. So in this 54 aging like fine wine ahead of Tony, Mzee wa Kazi, in quotes, still eager to provide his mettle at this year's magical Kenya operation. The 54-year-old says discipline is what has kept him going for all this while. Well, you can read that story on page 37, and let's see what is on page 38.
Still on the sports news, it says, catch me if you can. Cabras and KCB set a Pig Cup final bout. Kisumu and Nodis Xavier Kenya Cup promotion.
Brilliant. Those are some local sports news and some football. Now, let's see on page 39, Champions League knockout games put coach jobs at risk. So, Garcia is the 7th coach in less than 12 years at PSG. Job insecurity is not unusual among the European elites. Now, 7 coaches PSG has had in 12 years. There is the whole of that documentary on page 39. You can get to read it. Now, there are today's fixtures. We have Benfica versus Club, is it Brugge at 11 p.m. And also Chelsea will be playing against Borussia Dortmund today at 11 p.m. for football enthusiasts and especially Chelsea fans. Last week they were very happy. They won a match and people could not breathe on social media. Also tomorrow Bayern Munich will be playing against PSG at 11 p.m. and Tottenham Hotspur versus AC Milan at 11 p.m.
As we wrap up on the sports news, here we say, what a bitter pill to swallow. Man United level of performance had dropped since the team lifted the league up. And also, Liverpool record their biggest competitive win against Manchester United.
Oh, wow, this story of 7-0 is still making headlines everywhere. And I've seen a lot of memes. People are really criticizing Manchester United, you know.
Actually, there is one meme that I don't know if it was Manchester United who came up with. They said the way they were defeated in the football match, then someone responded like, "This is how Chelsea feels." This is how normally Chelsea feels when they are defeated in a football match. So I felt sorry for Manchester United.
But don't worry, obstacles are there. They say every setback is a setup for a comeback. So you never know what the coaches has in store. We hope that in their next match they are going to go back to where they were, of winning, and more unbeaten. Now guys, we go on a short commercial break. We are coming back with the Daily Nation. And keep interacting with us via our socials at Younib Media TV on Facebook, Younib_TV on Instagram. And you can also send us your sentiments via our SMS line 0719144144. We are coming back in a short while. Don't go away.
Yo, what's up niggas? Slewy Salat. Tuko rada na Toby hapa hivi.
In 1889, boxes that could reproduce sound were invented. Forget about history. Younib Music Studio is equipped with the latest technology and staffed with experienced sound engineers who will make your experience fun, engaging, groovy, and fulfilling as your music dreams become a reality. We offer music recording, commercial adverts, skiza tunes, podcast, and voiceovers. We are located in Syker along Kangondo Road, and you can also reach us on our social media platforms on Younib TV on Instagram and Younib Media on Facebook, or call us on 0719144144. Younib, ever the best.
Na wengine mnaita denti iko inashika. Najua hiyo bezi yenu ya Java, salon, place ya Motura, all those kind of places mna gather and you tell yourselves what's trending and everything. But there will be a new show that itakuwa in town with me Masi Waki.
Mimi hapa Alifakarura the chubby one, na obviously tuko na mwingine hapa anajitaje.
Tara, it's me Brenda aka Bremulav. Na tutakuwa tuna analyze vitu mingi kwa issue yetu. Celebrity gossip, nani amefanya hii, nani amefanya ile. Kuna trending movies na music, kuna meme of the week, TBT pale memories, what can you remember. Alafu last but not least, tutakuwa na fashion tips, tutakuwa tunakuguide. So catch us every Friday from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Younib TV. Na hii ni Udaku Corner.
Kama kuna place Udaku, the team Mohani Mashelu inashika, ni wapi?
Yo, what's up niggas? Slewy Salat. Tuko rada na Toby hapa hivi.
Iwe muziki, topics moto zenye zinasaidia mavijana, na pia story ya biz. Uko hapo hivyo mtaani, unashanga ni biz gani unaweza
Welcome back to the newspaper review. We are still rolling right here on Younib Media TV, the best youth television network in East and Central Africa. And now to take you through stories making headlines on the Daily Nation. Esther, what's popping?
We see the top news here. They say buckle up. Buckle up. Here it's written like storm gathers over economy amid grand promises. And Treasury CS Professor Njuguna Ndungo, from all the things we have analyzed, 2023 is not looking good. There are clear signals that it is going to be a tough year. So I think he's bringing a clear vision of how 2023 is going to be, especially right now as we had seen in the standard that there is a high rate of drought in our country. So I think alerting us it's a bit better.
And you see, this is the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, so that means, just as he puts it, 2023 is going to be a tough year. But you look at the vision the President has, he says the cost of living may be able to come down in an year. I think he said that when they just got into office. Yes. He asked for a year to do a few things, subsidies here and there, to make sure that we have affordable cost of living in the country. So yeah, we believe things are going to be fine.
And also, still on the first headline, they say $6.605 in billions. Yes. So currency reserves, foreign currency reserve have fallen below the desired 4 months cover and closed last Thursday at around $6.605 billion, or an equivalent of 3.69 month import cover. And also 145 trillion debt. Kenya public debt hit around 9.145 trillion in December against the allowed limit of 10 shillings trillion. And also we see our inflation, 9.2%. February inflation has climbed to around 9.2% from 9% in January, lowering the purchasing power of the household. And also on drought, up to 5 million Kenyans are currently facing drought and starvation, with some 2.61 million livestock dying due to lack of pasture and water. So I believe we are really going to see the toughest year.
Yeah. It's actually really hard times. I can see here they are saying households are reeling from the strains of heightened inflation, while businesses are struggling to find dollars to service their import requirements, including raw materials, at a time when more than 5 million Kenyans are staring at starvation. And amidst this bleak outlook, the government is still making promises. That story is beefed up for you on page 6 and page 7 of the Daily Nation. Let's see what page 2 has.
On investment, officials say government must invest in JSS laboratories. Union wants science teachers to be paid risk allowance. As the top news I say,
yeah, you see, I want to do an input here. Union wants science teachers to be paid risk allowance. Do you know why? When these teachers go to the lab, chemicals, yes, and these things are very risky. They are a jeopardy to our health, you know, and that is why I think if there was an opinion poll for this, then I would say a straight yes, so that they be paid risk allowance, because it's risky in the laboratories.
Yes, even Ronald Tonui said, as a matter of fact, hundreds of science teachers in Kenya have suffered in silence over the years, having contracted respiratory diseases. And indeed, I think this is true, because they are really interacting with chemicals is not easy, and it's harmful.
Yes, I can remember when we were in Form 2, we were taught how to smell ammonia. You were supposed to be sniffing it like this. So most of us didn't know. You were given that chemical in a container, and then people used to do like this, and it has that choking smell.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine how hard it is to do that. Now let's see what page 3 has. Family appeals for help as Kenya ni nchi ya ajabu composer dies. Now, Odengo's family says he suffered a stroke after government said it would no longer pay his rent. Such a sad state of affairs there. You can read that story on page 2 of today's Daily Nation.
Moving on, measures. State will increase camera surveillance along key roads to monitor passengers' behavior across the city. Kenya Airways launches policy to eradicate human trafficking. The firm will train its staff on how to identify traffickers and victims and report suspicious activity and persons. I think that's good.
That's a positive insight. Let's move on to page 5. Reactions. KUJ Secretary General Eric Oduor called the tweet the biggest threat to press freedom in recent times. Outrage over Senator's anti-media tweet. Now, Kenya Correspondents Association Chairperson William Olo Janak termed it as an assault on media freedom, and we see here KEG President Churchill Otieno saying, and I quote, "The senator is saying that the president is keen to crush the media. We hope that President Ruto and his government have no such designs." So it's a debate there that is still ongoing, and we'll see how it goes.
Hard times beckon as economy is battered from several fronts. Even as the dark clouds gather over the citizenry, top state officials, including the president, continue to make grand promises. Indeed, this is showing the hard times that we are yet to see.
Yeah, we have seen those sentiments by the CS Treasury that 2023 is going to be a little bit tough. But let's just be hopeful, guys. Things will be easy now. Fuel crisis looms as stocks dry up on dollar shortage. Vivo Energy's Shell stations were the most hit by a petrol shortage over the weekend and yesterday. So there is a photo here, boda operators scrambling for fuel at Shell outlet in Kisumu City amid a biting shortage in April last year. By the way, last year, even here in Nairobi, you could see motorists lining mpaka they were blocking the roads simply because of a shortage of fuel.
And also here, I can see they're trying to show the percentage, which is 23.83 Vivo Energy market share according to sales data for the year ending June 2022.
Also 3.69 months of forex reserves import cover as at March 2nd, according to Central Bank of Kenya.
Yeah.
So let's see what page 8 has.
Multinational firm paying 5 times better. A worker in an ex-territorial or organization earned 313,884. 313,084 in 2021.
Well, that is some good news there to those who are working on that farm. Let's see what page 10 has in store for us.
Apex Court told to respond to Chetembwe appeal, where they say the Supreme Court has directed a tribunal that recommend the removal of Justice Juma Chetembwe from office to respond to his appeal within 42 days. Also ordered to respond is Attorney General Justin Muturi.
Oh yeah, let's move on to some news in Meru. Meru University closed as students riot over the Vice Chancellor. Also, still, killer policeman had signs of depression. This is the story that we saw on the Standard newspaper. That police officer, he's called Mark Mulanda, who shot dead his mistress, Rhoda Chipchumba, and his neighbor's wife, Viola Jepkoech in Langata, Nairobi County. Well, moving on swiftly to page 12, what do we have there?
Hamed Nasir law firm hired in battle for control of Naivas, where lawyers have written to the registrar of companies seeking to know their shareholding structures of Naivas. You can find that on page 12 of the Daily Edition.
Now, on to page 13, the East African Business Conference and Trade Fair is here, and you can also get insights on what is going to take place there. You can read that on page 13. Take us to page 14.
This is where Sakaja says, Sakaja Matatu owners urged to settle Green Park standoff. The party should file a report in court before March 20th on the outcome of the meeting. We see Justice Hedwig Omundi giving his opinion where he said, from what I am hearing, one of the parties is not presenting the true picture on the ground. So, yeah.
Let's look at some expert opinion on page 15 of the Standard. And primary health care is vital for resilient health systems. Now, this is particularly important in the context of pandemics where healthcare systems can become overwhelming by a sudden influx of patients. That is a sentiment by Judy Sirima, who is a healthcare worker. Also, support girls, women with disabilities. Now, the annual report by Airtel Africa for 2021-2022 shows smartphone adoption in the continent is relatively low, with availability of the 4G network expanding but not yet available everywhere. Now, you can also get to read those opinions on page 15 of the Standard. Still Matters expert opinion, what do we have on page 16?
On page 16, putting China square in round hole. The number of Chinese nationals living and working in Kenya has hugely grown over the past 2 decades. Once a rarity on our street, likely to draw curious glance, the Chinese are now as common as foreigners of Caucasian or South Asian extraction who have lived, worked, and settled among us for more than a century.
And that is really true. We have a lot of Chinese nationals in Kenya, and we have even seen some of them build our roads. And we can say they are doing a good job.
Yes.
Yeah, also on page 17, cooperatives can provide solution to unwanted ubiquitous middleman. Now, there's a sentiment here by Isaac K. Nyamongo, who says they deliberately disempower the farmer by denying them critical information. You can read that story on page 17 of the Daily Nation.
And also here, what's trending is it's LGBTQ, where LGBTQ debate has a parenting silver lining, where we see, inasmuch as the legislation of LGBTQ in the country, following the Supreme Court ruling that allowed the registration and organization for those of the sexual orientation, is a grievous mistake, it has a silver lining.
Well, this story of LGBTQ, I saw MP Peter Opondo Kaluma. He was really upset by the court ruling on this story, and they said they are going to do a bill in Parliament, and anybody who will rise against that bill will be a member of Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, that is what he said. So we are waiting to see how it goes, and yeah, we'll pick it from there. Also, today I can see there's an article on Today in History. Take us through that. This day, Today in History.
So on Today in History, March 7, 2010, Dr. Newton Kalundu, a former MP for Lurambi, dies at Nairobi Hospital, aged 62. The former Labor Minister succumbed to a short illness, said his younger brother, Professor Kulundu Bitonyi, without stating the cause of death, but his son, Edgar Kulundu, cited colon cancer.
Okay.
Professor Kulundu said his brother fell sick at his rural home in Bunyala, Western Kenya, and was admitted to the Aga Khan Hospital, Kisumu. Here, Dr. Kulundu, in his Nairobi office in May 2005, when he launched a team to avert a civil servant strike. Also present are Labour Commissioner Johnston Kavuludi, and Ministry of Official.
Well, taking you back to some history, let's look at business news on the Daily Nation now. Cab firm Yego stars ripples in Kenya's digital taxi market. Agreement by Rwanda-based company with the drivers on low commission, link with financing and pension deal leaves rivals rattled. We have that story on page 2 of the business article.
Moving forward, Yego stars Kenya digital taxi.
I think that is the story we talked about. You can get to read the whole of that insight on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Moving on to page 3, powering SMEs. Now, smart move. Startup Steamer Border is banking on their electric motorbike, which is more environment friendly, to bite a huge chunk of the lucrative transport sector. That story is also still on page 2 of this article. Let's see there. What do we have on page 3?
On page 3, electric border, the smarter and more efficient way to get around. I think they've launched the electric border.
Yeah, this comes just a few days after they also launched electric buses.
Yes.
Have you used one, by the way?
Actually, I've not used one, but I've seen one in town.
Yeah, I've also just got to see one, but I've not really interacted with them because maybe they don't ply the routes that we use when we go home. Now let's see at some health article, Health Nation. I was deaf, now I hear. That's some good news. They said he would never learn to speak because he could not hear anything when he was born 10 years ago. They were wrong. And inside, how technology came to the rescue of Amari, the wonder boy who beat deafness to live a normal life. That story is on page 4 of this article.
Here, there's also some interesting news where they say intermittent fasting could cause cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they are trying to say, if you have been trying to lose weight, chances are you have tried out intermittent fasting, and this could cause cancer.
Is it ulcers? Is it something related to ulcers, maybe? You can also tell us your sentiments on this. Do you think intermittent fasting could cause cancer? Yeah. Let's move on to page 4 of this article. Strengthening primary health care will save lives. Now, a big thumbs up to the counties that have stretched their budgets thus far to pay their community health volunteers as a token of appreciation. So there are counties who are apparently paying health volunteers a token of appreciation. That is really good. It's a motivating factor.
Still on the healthcare, for the Daily Nation, page 2, Amari was born deaf, now he hears and speaks. You can find that on page 4.
And page 5.
Yes.
Well, let's see what we have on this other end. This is business news now. Corporate governance sheds the light on minority shareholder awareness rights. Now, a number of firms have had their planned deals, including takeovers, vetoed by small owners, even as the government continues to flex its muscle in entities where it controls slightly over 50% of the stake. You can read that story on page 3 of the business article. Let's see some county news on the Daily Nation. Now, governors rope in DCI to end medical supplies theft. And there's a photo here. Nyandarua Governor Kiarie Badilisha displays some of the stolen medicines recovered in a residential house in Engineer Town. So I think maybe involving DCI to end this will really come through a lot because it is easier for the sleuths to identify these people. Yeah. What do we have on page 20?
On page 20, Senator wants county economic block bound in law. Here we see Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Company staff disconnect illegal water lines in Kiamaiko yesterday. Water and Irrigation Principal Secretary Paul Kiprono Rono warned residents against operating illegal water connections, saying culprits will be fined 100,000 shillings.
Oh, that's a stern warning there. Let's move on to page 22, some international news.
Yes, here we see hundreds of migrants flee Tunisia after an attack. Said claims migrants are behind most crime in the national African countries.
Well, you can catch that story on page 22 of the Daily Nation. Some international news there. Let's see page 23 under human rights. 9 in 10 women will experience physical, sexual, or psychological violence. Now, divorced women forced back to abusive ex-husbands by Taliban. Now, and here we say, Sana, a divorced woman, during an interview with AFP in a house in an undisclosed location in Afghanistan. So this is about this whole issue to deal with domestic violence. It's something that has been there. People are really trying to get to curb it, but it's not making that positive impact. We still get to hear such stories.
But at least right now, it's minimal, unlike...
Sure. Let's see some business news.
Hotpoint gets reprieve in 24 million tax case. Hotpoint Appliances has won a reprieve after the High Court reversed a decision of the Tax Appeal Tribunal to allow 24 million tax claim against the firm.
All right.
Yes.
Also, state agency paid 2.7 million shillings monthly for unused office. Now, regulator paid a total of 53 million for the space between July 20th and March 22nd. Yeah, you can also get to read that story on page 24 of today's Nation newspaper. Now, I think let's move on to some sports news.
Yes, on some sport news, Russell tipped Red Bull to win title. Verstappen triumphed comfortably from pole position at Saki, Perez second.
Yes, that story is briefed up for you on page 32. Also on page 33, KQ Kenya opens official airline partner for 2 years. So the firm will offer discounted ticket prices to over 200 players for DP World Tour events. This is good news.
Yes.
So any player who will be going out will be getting a discounted ticket price. So yeah, it's good to hear that. Yeah, on page 34, under sports news, Esther.
We said, moment of reckoning for Chelsea, costly recruits. Dortmund travelled to London on back of 10th game winning run that he has taken Edin Terzic men into a share of Bundesliga lead with Bayern Munich.
Yeah, and there's also that fixture for this game. I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Chelsea versus Borussia Dortmund. Yeah.
No, it's today.
It's today. Today at what time? 11 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, Liverpool mauling brutal reality check for Manchester United. It's a story making the headlines since Sunday. Today we are in Tuesday, and still people cannot maintain silence on the 7 goals to nil that Liverpool gave Manchester United. As we wrap up sports news, KNT sees 2.21 billion tenders for foodstuff queried. Now, a number of farms have been contracted to supply edible oils, rice, beans, and fertilizer. You can read that story on the cover page, the back page, of the Daily Nation. Now, let us sample a few sentiments that you guys sent throughout this review. Now, Tess Wanjiku says she loves what is happening in the country, and she loves staying updated. Thank you for those amazing sentiments, Tess. We have Trading Partners Network, who says well done. All right, these are just rounds of applause for the newspaper review team and the entire crew. Ladies and gentlemen, we beg to stop at that point. My director says our time is up. This has been the newspaper review. And before we sign off, I want to thank the entire team for production. Our videographers, Nick Mwenda, Emma Tosinya, at the programs desk, Penina Washera, and Anifa Kavira. Many thanks also for choosing to stay with Younib TV, ever the best. I was your host, Alfonso Albakwekwe.
And Esther Athiambo.
See you tomorrow, same time, same place, for more stories making headlines on our newspapers. Bye-bye.